A story worth telling friends. Settle in while I share something that's been weighing on my heart these many years. Back in 1962, when my Harold passed, I found myself sorting through his mother's things up in that dusty attic in Amarillo. Among the yellowed photographs and brittle newspapers, I discovered a leather journal, worn smooth as river stone. The pages told of a woman named Clara Hartley, who stepped off a stagecoach in Clearwater, Texas, back in 1882, with little more than hope and 17 cents to her name. Now, Clara wasn't looking for adventure or fame. She was just trying to survive in a world that had precious little use for a woman alone. But the good Lord works in mysterious ways, and sometimes He puts us exactly where we need to be, even when it feels like the last place on earth we'd choose. When dreams turn to dust, the October sun bore down on Clearwater's main street like it had a personal grudge against every living thing. Clara Hartley stood beside the stagecoach, her traveling dress, the brown calico she'd mended twice on the journey, already gathering dust from the street. She could hear her mother's voice, clear as church bells. "Chin up, Clara Jane. A lady maintains her composure." But Mama had never stood in a strange town, waiting for a man who'd promised marriage through 6 months of letters. Harold Fitzgerald descended the Imperial Hotel's painted steps with the careful precision of a man approaching something unpleasant. Clara recognized him from the tintype he'd sent, though that image had been kind to him. She realized his actual face carried a softness around the jowls, a weakness in the mouth that the photograph had hidden. "Miss Hartley, I presume—" His voice carried the false cheerfulness of a merchant about to refuse credit. "Mr. Fitzgerald." She kept her hands folded at her waist, though they trembled something fierce. "I trust you received my telegram from Fort Worth?" "Yes. Well." Harold's gaze traveled from her dust-dulled hair to her cracked boot leather, lingering on the worn fingertips of her gloves. "There seems to be a misunderstanding. Now, I should tell you folks were already gathering. Mrs. Pemberton, and Lord knows, that woman could smell gossip from 3 counties away, had materialized from Dobson's Mercantile with 2 other ladies from the Methodist Women's Circle. Cowboys lounged against the hitching posts, rolling cigarettes with the studied casualness of men who didn't want to miss the show. A misunderstanding. Clara's voice came out steady as she could make it inside. Her stomach churned like butter in the making. "I was expecting—" Harold gestured vaguely, as if the right words might materialize from the hot air. "That is to say, your letters suggested a woman of substance." There it was, plain as day. She'd sent him the only photograph she'd had, taken before Papa's death, before the debts, before she'd sold everything down to Mama's pearl buttons to buy Passage West. That woman in the picture wore her mother's good silk. This woman wore mended calico and determination. I see. 2 words, but they held a world of understanding. "Now, I'm not an ungenerous man," Harold continued, warming to his theme like a preacher finding his rhythm. "But a man in my position needs a wife who can contribute to an establishment, not—" Another gesture, this one encompassing her whole sorry state. Behind the hotel's lace curtains, faces appeared and disappeared like curious fish in an aquarium. The town was getting its entertainment, all right. "Then I'll need funds for return passage," Clara said, amazed her voice didn't crack like drought-dried earth. Harold actually laughed a short, ugly sound like a dog's bark. "That's hardly my responsibility. You came here of your own accord. Now, you have to understand. Back in those days, a woman alone in a frontier town was about as welcome as a rattlesnake at a church picnic. Clara knew, Lord, how she knew that she had 17 cents in her reticule, 17 cents in a trunk of mended clothes, and no way home to a home that didn't exist anymore anyway. Well, then, she bent for her valise, though the motion made her stays dig something awful into ribs already sore from 3 days of coach travel. I'll need to find lodging. The hotel doesn't accommodate single ladies, the clerk called from his doorway, helpful as a case of measles. No offense intended, but it ain't proper. The boarding house is full up, Mrs. Pemberton added, her voice sweet as sorghum over broken glass. Has been for weeks. So many people coming through for the cattle drives. You understand? Clara understood perfectly. The town was closing ranks, protecting itself from the contamination of a rejected woman, a correspondent's bride who'd traveled alone to meet a man who'd found her wanting. The sun hammered down merciless. Sweat gathered under her corset, her bustle, in every fold of fabric. Her throat felt packed with trail dust and disappointment. The crowd waited for tears, for begging, for the expected feminine collapse that would confirm their judgments about women who reached above their station. There's work at my place, if you need it. The voice came quiet from the shadows between buildings. A man stepped forward, canvas pants, leather vest worn soft with use, hat pulled low. When he tipped it back, she saw gray eyes, patient as morning. What kind of work? She kept her voice low, private, though she knew every ear strained to hear. Ranch work, cooking, keeping books, $1 a week plus board. Mrs. Pemberton made a sound like she'd swallowed a bee. Mr. Rivers, surely you're not suggesting— I'm suggesting employment, ma'am. Nothing more, nothing less. He didn't look at Mrs. Pemberton, kept those gray eyes on Clara. I need help. Miss seems to need work. That's all there is to it. $1 a week was nothing. $1 a week was everything. Board meant a roof, meals, survival. But taking his offer meant admitting Harold was right. She was desperate. Charity case. A woman with no options. Your ranch, she said carefully. How far? An hour's ride, maybe more. An hour from town. An hour from these faces, these whispers, this humiliation. You have proper accommodations. Separate quarters. Office off the kitchen, you'd have to yourself. I sleep in the barn. The crowd stirred at that. A man who'd give up his house to a stranger, Samuel Rivers, had just become more interesting than Clara's humiliation. She looked at Harold one last time. He'd already turned away, climbing the hotel steps like a man with important business elsewhere. 6 months of letters, of promises, of my dear Clara, and your devoted Harold, all evaporating like spit on a hot stove. Mr. Rivers, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, I accept your offer of employment. He nodded once. Economical. Wagons at the end of the street. We'll fetch your trunk from the depot. He started walking, not waiting to see if she'd follow, not offering to carry her valise. Somehow that was better than false courtesy. He was treating her like someone capable, not like something broken. Clara fell into step beside him, matching his pace, though her stays made breathing a struggle. Behind them, the town buzzed like a kicked hive. Let them talk. She had work, shelter, and a man who didn't look at her like something to be scraped off his boot. The wagon sat weathered, but solid. Canvas tarp stretched over the bed. Samuel didn't help her up, just waited while she gathered her skirts and climbed aboard herself. Only when she was settled did he speak again. It ain't an easy life out there. I don't expect easy, Mr. Rivers. He looked at her then, really looked, and she saw something flicker in those gray eyes. Recognition, maybe. One person who'd been broken seeing another still holding their pieces together. Reckon you don't, he said, and clicked to the horses. As the wagon rolled past the Imperial Hotel, Clara didn't look back, but she kept those 16 letters from Harold tucked in her pocket. Their weight a reminder that promises were just paper unless backed by character. And character, she was learning, showed itself not in grand declarations, but in quiet offers of help when the whole world turned its back. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. The ranch materialized from the heat shimmer, like something half remembered from a dream. Single story, wood gone silver as old nickels, gaps between the boards wide enough to see through. The windmill creaked its rhythm, metal on metal, regular as a pulse. Samuel pulled the wagon alongside the smallest building, set the brake. Dust settled over them both, fine as flour. That's the barn. His finger moved to each structure without his eyes following. Smokehouse. Chicken coop. A pause. Though most of the chickens died in the heat last month, Clara climbed down. Her boots hit packed earth hard enough to jar her teeth. No grass here, just dirt beaten down by boots and hooves and wind. The silence pressed against her ears. No voices, no wagons, no town sounds. Just that windmill keeping time. The main house door stuck when Samuel tried it. He put his shoulder to the wood, shoved. The door gave way sudden-like, and stale air rushed out, bacon grease and coal oil and something else. Loneliness, maybe. If loneliness had a smell. 3 rooms she could see from the doorway. Kitchen with a cast-iron stove, its top dusty. Main room with 2 ladder-back chairs, neither matching. 2 doors on the far wall, both closed. Office is there. Samuel pointed left. Was mine? Yours now, if you're staying. Clara stepped inside. Her feet found every loose board, each one announcing her presence. 5 plates on the shelf, only 3 matching. 2 cups, one with a chip in the rim, a coffee pot that had seen better decades. On a peg by the door hung a shawl, blue wool, good quality once. Dust had settled into its folds, but someone had hung it careful, arranging the fringe just so. Samuel's jaw tightened when he saw her looking. His hand rose like he might take it down. Stopped midway, dropped. Bedroom's there. He indicated the other closed door with his chin. That's mine. You'd have the office, has a cot, dresser, lock on the door from inside if you want it. Where would you sleep? Barn's got a loft. Been meaning to move out there anyway. Better for keeping things proper. Clara walked to the office doorway. Small room, window facing west into the sun. A cot with fresh ticking, but no sheets. Dresser missing 1 drawer pull. On a plank desk, ledgers stacked crooked. $1 a week? Samuel stood behind her, not close but present. You cook evening meals. Keep the books straight. Help with the kitchen garden if we get rain. No washing my clothes, I handle my own. No cleaning beyond the common areas. We keep separate. Why? He moved past her to the desk, pulled down the top ledger. Pencil marks covered the pages, numbers crossed out, written over, some rubbed away entirely. Last 3 years of accounts. He set the book down gentle, like it might break. They're not. I can't make them balance. But that wasn't what she'd asked. Clara waited. Cool. Samuel walked to the stove, lifted the coffee pot, set it down, walked to the window, looked out at the brown grass stretching forever. When he finally turned back, the late afternoon sun caught his face sideways, showing lines earned by weather and something else. You didn't cry. What? Back there, in town. Fitzgerald threw you away in front of everyone. He pulled a match from his pocket, struck it on the stove, watched it burn down to his fingers before dropping it. You didn't cry. The burnt match smell filled the space between them. That's why you offered me work. Figure a woman who can stand, that can handle keeping books. Through the kitchen window, Clara watched the sun dropping toward the horizon, painting everything the color of dried blood. The windmill kept its rhythm. Somewhere, a board creaked though neither of them had moved. On the mantel, above the cold stove, something caught the light. A photograph in a tarnished frame, turned just enough that Clara could make out the edge of a woman's face. Young, serious, pearl buttons on her dress catching the last light. Samuel followed her gaze. His whole body went still, the kind of still that comes before or after violence. "That's Margaret," he said. "My wife." The past tense hung in the air like dust motes. "When did she pass?" "She didn't." His voice went flat as the horizon. "She's in the bedroom. Been there 5 years." Clara's hand found the doorframe. The wood felt rough, peeled, something solid, while Samuel's words echoed wrong in her ears. "She's—" Clara stopped. "I don't understand." "Dead. 5 years." Samuel turned the photograph face down on the mantel. "Cholera took her. What I meant was her things. Her things are still in there." The bedroom door stayed closed, but Clara felt it now, a weight in the house, like holding your breath too long. "I see. Do you—" Samuel walked to the stove, opened the firebox door, stared at old ashes. "First night, you'll want to get settled. I'll move my things to the barn." He left before she could answer. The door hung open behind him, letting in air that smelled of dust and distance. Clara stood alone in the kitchen. Through the window, she watched Samuel carry blankets from somewhere, a storage chest, maybe to the barn. 3 trips. He never looked back at the house. The coffee pot sat empty on the stove. She found the pump at the sink, worked the handle. Nothing. 5 strokes, 10. On the 15th stroke, water coughed out, brown at first, then clearer. The smell of iron and minerals filled her nose. Coffee beans in a tin on the shelf. Grinder mounted to the wall. She cranked the handle, beans cracking between the burrs. The sound too loud in the empty house. By the time Samuel returned, coffee steam rose from 2 cups on the table. He stopped in the doorway, looked at the cups, at her sitting in one of the ladder-back chairs. "You don't have to." "I know what I have to do and don't, Mr. Rivers." She pushed the 2nd cup across the table. "Sit. We need to discuss the books." He sat. The chair creaked under his weight. His hands wrapped around the cup, working hands, knuckles scarred, one fingernail black from some old injury. Clara opened the top ledger. Columns of numbers swam across the page, some in pencil, some in ink, different hands mixing together. "Is this your writing?" "The pencil, mostly. Margaret kept the books before—" He stopped. "Before—" Clara traced a finger down the entries. Sales of cattle, purchases of feed, payments to hired hands. Then gaps, weeks where no entries appeared. Then numbers crammed together like they were catching up. These deposits. She pointed to a series of $20 entries. Every month for, looks like 4 years. No notation about the source. Samuel's jaw muscle jumped. Anonymous. Someone wanting to help. Help with what? Debts. The word came out short. Margaret had debts from before we married. From back east. Philadelphia. Clara turned pages backward, found the wedding date, noted in careful script, June 15th, 1877. After that, withdrawals, $50 monthly to Bib. Who's W? William Pemberton, the banker. He bought Margaret's debts from the Philadelphia creditors. Said he was doing us a favor. Mrs. Pemberton's satisfied face rose in Clara's memory. That woman knew something, had known it when she'd stood there in front of the hotel watching Clara's humiliation. 50 going out, 20 coming in, Clara said. That's a $30 loss every month. Until the 20 stopped. Samuel stood, walked to the window. September 1881, month she died. Clara did the arithmetic. 4 years of $20 deposits. Nearly $1,000 from someone wanting to help. She looked at the initials again. Whoopee? William Pemberton? 4 days into the routine. Clara woke while stars still pricked the sky, dressed in darkness chemise, corset, petticoat, the brown calico. Her fingers knew each hook and button now. The kitchen held yesterday's warmth in its walls. She fed kindling to the embers in the stove, watched orange crawl across wood, coffee grounds from yesterday in the pot. She added a spoonful of fresh. Water from the pump came easier now that she'd learned to prime it first with a cup saved from the night before. Samuel's footsteps on the porch. He came in bringing the smell of horse and hay. Took his coffee black. Stood at the window watching the horizon lighten from black to gray to pale yellow. "Thompson's account," Clara said, pencil ready over the ledger. "Shows he owes $40. Samuel's shoulders shifted. "That's right. But here, 2 pages later, it says paid in full. No date. No notation." "Must have paid." Clara waited. Samuel turned from the window. Thompson's wife had a baby last winter, almost died birthing it. Doctor charged $20 they didn't have. "So you forgave the debt?" "Didn't forgive nothing. Just didn't collect." She found more. Martinez, $15 vanished. Watson, 23. Henderson, 35. Always after some notation in the margins. "Widow, sick child, drought loss. You've given away near $300. My money to give. Your money to lose the ranch with." Samuel set his cup down hard. Coffee sloshed onto the table. "That's my business." "It's our business if I'm keeping your books." Clara closed the ledger. "Saturday, tomorrow. I need supplies from town." "Make a list. I'll go." "No, I'll go." "Clara, Miss Hartley." She stood, smoothed her skirt, "And I won't hide. That's what they expect." Saturday morning came gray. Clouds promising rain that wouldn't fall. Samuel drove the wagon, Clara beside him on the seat. The road ran straight, dust rising behind them like smoke. Town filled with Saturday business, farmers' wagons, cowboys in from the range, women with baskets doing their shopping. Every head turned when Samuel stopped the wagon in front of Dobson's Mercantile. "I'll wait here," he said. "No." Clara climbed down. "We go in together or not at all." The store door jangled. Conversation stopped like a clock quit ticking. Mrs. Pemberton stood at the fabric counter with 2 other women, all 3 turning toward Clara and Samuel. "Why, Mr. Rivers," Mrs. Pemberton's voice carried across the store. "And your employee." Clara walked to the counter. 50 pounds of flour, 3 pounds coffee, salt, sugar if you have it. The clerk, a boy maybe 16 with spots on his neck, looked from Clara to Mrs. Pemberton to Samuel. "Boys waiting for your order," Samuel said quiet. The clerk jumped, started scooping flour. Such an interesting arrangement. Mrs. Pemberton stepped closer. A young woman living with a widowed man. No chaperone. "I have employment," Clara said. "Yes, employment." Mrs. Pemberton smiled. "That's what Margaret called it, too, at first." Samuel went still. That dangerous stillness Clara had seen before. "Mrs. Pemberton," Clara said clear enough for the whole store to hear, "I keep Mr. Rivers' books. I've noticed some interesting entries. Regular deposits, $20 monthly, from someone with the initials WP. The store went silent. Even the clerk stopped scooping. Mrs. Pemberton's face drained white, then flushed red. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. Just observing that someone was very generous to the Rivers Ranch." "Very generous indeed, but—" "William, my husband, he's a banker. He invests in many properties." "Monthly? For 4 years, that's quite an investment." Mrs. Pemberton's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Behind her, the other women exchanged looks. Samuel stepped forward. "The flour, boy. We're burning daylight." The clerk finished filling their order in stammering haste. Samuel paid, carried the supplies out, Clara followed, felt eyes tracking them through the windows. In the wagon, rolling out of town, Samuel finally spoke. "You shouldn't have said that." "Why not?" "Because now she knows we know." "Good." "Clara, Miss Hartley, you don't understand. The Pembertons hold the note on the ranch. They can call it in early if they claim moral violations." "What moral violations? I'm an employee, living unchaperoned with a single man. You sleep in the barn. They don't know that." Clara turned on the seat to face him. "Then we make sure they know. We make sure everyone knows. Unless they want questions about those deposits to get louder." Samuel's hands tightened on the reins. "You're playing a dangerous game. I'm playing the only game there is." Clara faced forward again. "Survival." They drove in silence while clouds gathered darker. The first fat raindrops hit when the ranch came into view, then more, then sheets of water, sudden and violent. Samuel drove the wagon straight into the barn. They sat there, rain hammering the roof, water running off in streams. "There's something else," Samuel said. "About Margaret, about the bedroom." Clara waited. "Her dress, the blue one she wore when she died, it's still in there." His voice went rough. I can't." Thunder cracked overhead. In the lightning flash, Clara saw Samuel's face clear, saw the guilt written there, plain as any ledger entry. "She begged me to burn it, the dress. Said she didn't want anyone to see her like that. But after she died, I couldn't do it. Couldn't do that last thing she asked." "Why?" Samuel turned to look at her, and in his eyes she saw the answer before he spoke it. "Because I wanted to punish her. For taking his money. For making me a fool." His laugh came out broken. "Turns out I only punished myself." 3 weeks. Clara marked each rainless day in the ledger's margin with a pencil scratch. 21 marks now, getting deeper as the pencil pressed harder. The morning sky hung white as old bone. No clouds, just a heat already pressing down, though the sun hadn't cleared the horizon proper. She stood at the kitchen window, watching as Samuel lead the horses to the water trough. Yesterday, it had been 3/4 full, now barely half. Her bare feet found the squeaky board by the stove, third one from the left. She'd learned to step around it. Coffee grounds in the pot from yesterday, used twice already. She added 1 spoonful of fresh, just 1. Everything had to stretch now. The pump handle fought her. 5 strokes dry. 10 on 15. Water coughed out, less than yesterday. She caught it in the coffee pot, not wasting a drop on the basin. "Through the window!" Samuel poured water from the rain barrel into the trough. His movements careful, measured. When the horses finished drinking, he'd pour what remained back into the barrel. She'd seen him do it yesterday and the day before. The ledger lay open on the table where she'd left it last night, 5 years back now, like he'd asked. Those $20 deposits started right after the wedding date she'd found noted in June 1877. Every month, regular as clockwork. Cash deposit, written in handwriting that wasn't Samuel's. Always the same careful script. Then nothing after September 881. Samuel's boots on the porch. Clara moved the ledger aside, poured coffee. He came in with an empty bucket, set it by the door. Pumps running slower, I noticed. Maybe 15 strokes to fill now, sometimes 20. Clara handed him his cup. He took it, looked at the weak brown liquid. "You watered it down." "Stretched it. There's a difference." He drank without complaining. They stood at opposite windows, watching the land bake under a sun that wasn't even properly up yet. "The garden needs water," Clara said. "Cattle need it more. Those seedlings die. We've got nothing for winter vegetables. Cattle die. We've got nothing, period." She'd learned to read his jaw, that muscle that jumped when he was calculating. It was jumping now. "My father tried something in Nebraska. During the drought of 74, she set down her cup. Furrow irrigation to dig channels between the rows. Water runs along them instead of spreading over everything. uses half as much." Samuel turned from the window. "Your father farmed until the grasshoppers came, then the bank came." The words came out flat. "The irrigation worked while it lasted, though. Show me." The garden sat behind the house. 6 rows of struggling plants. Tomatoes, beans, squash, corn, half were already gone. Leaves curled in on themselves like arthritic fingers. Clara knelt between the rows, her skirt pooling in the dust. The ground was hard as fired clay. Channels here. She drew lines with her finger, maybe 4 inches deep. Sloped them just so. Water follows the lowest point, soaks down to the roots instead of running off. Samuel crouched beside her, close enough she could smell his shirt-lye soap and dried sweat and something like hay. "Need tools from the barn." He brought back a hoe and a narrow shovel. They worked without talking. Samuel breaking the hard ground, Clara following behind, shaping the channels with her hands. The sun climbed higher. Sweat ran down her spine, soaked through her chemise, her corset, made the waistband of her skirt stick to her skin. Her palms blistered where she gripped the shovel. The blisters broke. Blood mixed with dirt, made mud in the creases of her hands. She kept digging. "Here." Samuel held out his canteen. Clara's throat burned for it. Her lips were cracked, bottom one split and tasting of copper. She took one sip. The water was warm, metallic, precious. She handed it back. "Drink more." "You first." His own lips were cracked, bleeding at the corner. He raised the canteen, stopped. "Ladies first." "I'm not a lady. I'm help. Help drinks last." Something changed in his face. He took one swallow, passed it back. She drank again, careful not to put her mouth where his had been, not because it wasn't proper, because of something else. Something that made her stomach tighten when his sleeve brushed her arm as they worked. "Your father," Samuel said, going back to the hoe. "He teach you all this. He taught me to be useful." That all? Clara shaped another channel, dirt packing black under her fingernails. "He taught me that wanting more than you have brings nothing but grief, that reaching past your station is dangerous, that a woman should know her place and be grateful for it. You believe that I'm here, aren't I?" Samuel stopped digging, leaned on the hoe handle, looking at her straight on, really looking the way he'd started doing these past days when he thought she wouldn't notice. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have," thunder rumbled, low and far off. They both looked west, clouds building on the horizon, dark-bottomed, heavy with promise. "Might pass over," Samuel said. "Might not." They worked faster then, racing the clouds. The channels took shape, a network of veins ready to carry water if it came, when it came, had to come. Clara's back screamed. Every muscle from her neck to her knees burned. She straightened, pressed her hands to her lower back. Samuel was watching her. "Take a rest. When you do, I'm used to this work. I'm learning to be." The first drops hit just as they finished the last row. Fat, scattered, marking the dust like coins dropped, then more, then sheets of it, sudden and violent and cold. Samuel grabbed her arm. Inside, they ran, slipping in mud that hadn't existed 10 seconds before. The porch roof gave little shelter. Rain blew sideways, soaked them both in seconds. Clara's hair came loose from its pins, hung in wet ropes. Samuel's shirt went transparent, clung to him, showed the lean muscles underneath. The old star across his ribs she shouldn't be seeing. "Look," he said, pointing. The garden channels were working. Water ran along them in neat lines, soaking down deep instead of washing away. The plants seemed to straighten in real time, leaves uncurling. Clara laughed. The sound surprised her. She hadn't laughed since before Papa died, before Harold's letters, before everything fell apart. But here she was, soaked and muddy and laughing at irrigation ditches. Samuel was watching her, not the garden, her. His gray eyes had gold flecks in them she hadn't noticed before, or hadn't let herself notice. "What? Nothing. Just—" He turned back to the garden. "Your father was wrong. About irrigation. About reaching." His hand moved like he might touch her arm again. Stopped halfway. "Sometimes reaching for more is all that keeps us alive." The rain stopped as sudden as it started. Sun broke through, turned the wet earth to steam. They stood there dripping, watching the garden drink its fill. "I found them," Clara said. "The deposits you asked about." Samuel's whole body changed, tightened, and every month for 4 years, $20 cash, no name, but the handwriting in the notations, "It's not yours." "Whose is it?" "I don't know, but there's something else." She squeezed water from her hair. "The final deposit was made September 15th. You said Margaret died September 12th. Samuel's hand found the porch post, gripped it until his knuckles went white. "That's not possible." "It's in the ledger. Same handwriting as all the others. Someone made that deposit 3 days after she died." "Who would?" He stopped, turned to look at her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her step back. Not anger, fear. Clara, where's the ledger?" "On the kitchen table." "Why?" He was already moving. Through the door, across the kitchen. She followed. Found him standing over the open book, finger tracing the entry. "This handwriting?" His voice came out rough. "I've seen it before." He moved to the mantel, took down Margaret's photograph, turned it over. Clara hadn't noticed before, but there was writing on the back, faded brown ink, that same careful script, "My dearest M, forever yours, W." The same handwriting as the deposit notations. Clara looked from the photograph to the ledger. "Who's W?" Samuel set the photograph down face first like he couldn't bear to see it. "William Pemberton." The name hung in the air between them. Mrs. Pemberton's husband. The banker. The man who held the note on this ranch. He was paying her. Clara's voice came out small. "Your wife? Looks that way?" Samuel's laugh held no humor. "The righteous banker, the pillar of the community, was paying my wife $20 a month for 4 years. For what?" Samuel turned to her then, and his face was terrible, not angry. Worse than angry, empty. "What do you think?" Samuel's fist hit the table. The ledger jumped. Coffee splashed from Clara's cup, spreading brown across the pages where William Pemberton's careful numbers marched in their columns. "I need air." He pushed through the door before Clara could speak. She watched him through the window, his path to the barn, straight at first, then weaving like a man drunk or sick. The barn door slammed. Something crashed inside wood against wood. Then nothing. The coffee stain spread across the ledger page, seeping into paper fibers, blurring ink. Clara grabbed a flour sack towel, pressed it to the wet pages. The numbers held, mostly, $20, $20, $20, month after month after month. Margaret's photograph lay where Samuel had dropped it. Clara turned it over. That young face, serious as a sermon. Pearl buttons on the dress. "My dearest M, forever yours, W." How 4 years of payments. Near $1,000. For what Clara knew? Of course she knew. But knowing and understanding were different creatures. The office door stood open. Samuel's old desk was in there. The one he'd moved when Clara arrived. She'd been meaning to sort through it, organize the mess of papers on top, but something had held her back. Privacy, maybe, or respect for boundaries in this strange arrangement they had. Not anymore. The desk drawers stuck with heat-swollen wood. Clara yanked the top drawer. Ranch papers, the deed, bank documents, tax assessments. Second drawer held tools, leather strips, bolts, a broken bridle, Bottom drawer required both hands. When it finally gave, she almost fell backward. Letters, maybe 50 of them, bundled with twine, all addressed to Mrs. M. Rivers, Rivers Ranch, Clearwater, Texas. The handwriting was Samuel's. She knew it from the ledger entries, but no stamps, no postmarks. Clara lifted the bundle. Underneath lay more papers, loose this time. These had been opened, read, refolded so many times the creases had worn soft. Different handwriting, that flowing script from the photograph. Her hands shouldn't have been shaking. She was just hired help, keeping books, cooking meals. This wasn't her business. But her hands shook anyway as she unfolded the top letter. My beloved Margaret, each day without you stretches endless as this prairie. I count the hours until Thursday when you come to town for supplies. Wear the blue dress. You know how it pleases me to see you in it. Clara set it down, picked up another. Dearest M, your husband suspects nothing. We must be more careful. Meet me behind the hotel, not the mercantile. The clerk there has eyes that see too much. All my love. Another. My darling, the money is nothing. I would give you thousands if I could. You deserve silk and jewels, not calico and dust. Soon, my love, soon I will take you away from that prison. Forever yours, Will. Footsteps on the porch. Clara shoved the letters back, shut the drawer. Samuel stood in the doorway, knuckles bleeding. What happened to your hand? Barn wall needed adjusting. His voice came out flat. She moved to the pump, wet a cloth. The water ran pink when she wrung it out. Sit. He sat. She took his hand careful, like handling broke glass. His knuckles had split in 3 places. The blood welled up fast as she could wipe it away. His fingers were rough with calluses, twice the size of hers, shaking just barely. Why were you paying Pemberton? She asked, keeping her eyes on his wounds. Bank note on the ranch, not due till December, but not that. The $50 withdrawals, every month starting January 18 late. Samuel pulled his hand away. That was different. Different how? He stood, moved to the window. Outside. The garden channels still held water from the brief rain. Steam rose from the ground like spirits. Margaret came from money, back east, Philadelphia. Her family disowned her when she married me. Rancher wasn't good enough for their daughter. He pressed his forehead against the window glass. But she had debts from before. Dress shops, jewelers, things she'd bought when she still had access to family funds. $50 a month worth, with interest. Yes, Pemberton bought the debts from the Philadelphia creditors. Said he was doing us a favor, keeping it local. Clara did the arithmetic. 50 going out, 20 coming in. Net loss of 30 monthly for 3 years before the deposit started. You were drowning? Would have lost the ranch by 79. Then the deposit started. Anonymous. Margaret said, someone who wanted to help. A benefactor. I was too desperate to question it. You knew? I suspected. He turned from the window. But suspecting and knowing are different. Yes. Clara stood, moved to the stove, added wood that didn't need adding. When did you know for certain? The day I found them together, behind the mercantile, just talking. She said, just friendly conversation. His hand was on her arm. Samuel's laugh came out like breaking glass. Friendly. His wife knew. Everyone knew. Everyone but the fool paying the bills. Clara thought of Mrs. Pemberton's cold smile in the mercantile. That satisfaction when she'd said Margaret had called it employment too. The letters in your desk, the ones without stamps, you wrote them after she died. Samuel went still. You went through my desk. I'm trying to understand. Understand what? That I'm a fool who couldn't keep his wife from selling herself. That I wrote letters to a dead woman, because I had things to say and no one to hear them. What things? He moved to the table, sat heavy in the chair, that I knew she didn't love me, that I married her anyway because I was lonely and she was beautiful, and I thought that would be enough, that I'm sorry for bringing her here, to this place that killed her as sure as the cholera did. The cholera killed her, not you. The cholera finished her. This place, this life, me, we killed her first. Clara sat across from him, between them. The coffee-stained ledger lay open, high-pulled. Pemberton's payments marching down the page like soldiers. Did you love her? I loved the idea of her, the possibility. His bleeding fingers traced wood grain in the table. But the real woman, the one who took another man's money, who met him in secret, I didn't know her at all. She was surviving. He stopped, looked at Clara straight on. Is that what you think? That taking Pemberton's money was survival? I think a woman alone in a world that has no use for her does what she must. Clara's own hands found the table, pressed flat. I came here to marry a man I'd never met because I had 17 cents and no choices. If you hadn't offered me work, what would I have done? Where would I have gone? That's different, is it? They sat there, the question hanging between them like dust in afternoon light. Finally Samuel stood, went to the shelf, pulled down a wooden box she hadn't noticed before, set it between them on the table. Inside, chess pieces carved from 2 colors of stone, red sandstone from the cliffs, white limestone from the quarry. Margaret hated chess, he said, setting up the board, said it was too slow, too much thinking. My father taught me. Good, then you know the most important rule. Control the center, protect your queen. He moved a white pawn forward. The king can barely move, 1 square at a time, hiding behind others. But the queen, she can go anywhere, do anything, all the power's with her. Clara moved her black pawn to meet his. But everyone wants to take the queen, only if the player's not careful. He moved his knight, only if she's left exposed. They played while darkness gathered outside the windows. Neither spoke beyond calling moves. The lamp flame flickered, made their shadows dance on the walls. Clara's queen swept across the board, took his bishop. Samuel's fingers hesitated over his rook. Can I ask you something? Clara said. Ask. The bedroom. Why haven't you cleared it out? It's been 5 years. Samuel's hand pulled back from the chess piece. Haven't needed to. That's not a reason. He looked up from the board. In the lamplight, his eyes were more black than gray. Her dress is in there, the blue one, the one she wore when... He stopped, started again. The one she wore when she died. Clara waited. It has stains, blood, other things, from the cholera. His voice went rough. She begged me to burn it, said she didn't want anyone to see her like that, but after she died, I couldn't do that one last thing she asked. Why? Because I wanted to punish her, even dead. I wanted her to know what she'd done, taking his money, making me a fool. He moved his rook, a desperate defensive move. Turns out I only punished myself. That room, that dress, it's been punishing me for 5 years. Clara studied the board. His king was exposed now, his rook out of position. She could win in 3 moves. Instead, she moved her queen back, gave him room to recover. Your turn, she said. What? I told you about Thomas, about how he chose money over me. Your turn. Tell me about before Margaret, before all this. Samuel leaned back. The chair creaked. Not much to tell. Parents died when I was 15. Fever took them both in 1 week, left me the ranch, 300 head of cattle, and a mortgage. Worked alone for 10 years, got lonely, went to a church social in town, Saw Margaret there with her aunt. She was visiting from Philadelphia. Most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. So you courted her. I tried. Wrote letters. Brought flowers. Made promises about the life we'd have. His laugh held no humor. I sold her a dream that didn't exist. This grand ranch, this prosperous life. But all I had was work and dust and silence. She knew what you had when she married you. She knew what she thought she could change, what she thought Pemberton's money could help her change. He moved his king, castling to safety. Your move. Clara pushed a pawn forward, opening a line for her bishop. We're a pair, aren't we? You married for beauty? I agreed to marry for security? Both of us fools. Maybe. Samuel studied the board. Or maybe we were just human, wanting what humans want, connection, purpose, someone to share the silence with. Is that what we're doing? Sharing the silence. He looked up at her then, really looked, the way she'd caught him doing when he thought she wasn't watching. I don't know what we're doing. Clara, do you? She didn't answer. Couldn't, Hannah, because what they were doing didn't have a name. Employer and employee? Yes. Two damaged people sharing space? Yes. But also something else. Something that made her aware of his breathing, his presence, the way lamplight caught in his hair. Check, she said instead, her bishop threatening his king. Samuel studied the board, found his escape, moved. They played on while the lamp burned lower. Outside, but wind picked up, rattled the windows. The coffee-stained ledger dried into ripples. Pemberton's numbers preserved but warped. There's something else, Samuel said, about the deposits. Clara waited, her hand hovering over her night. That last one, September 15th, 3 days after Margaret died. He met her eyes. I was the one who told Pemberton she was dead. Saw him at the bank that morning. September yet. And he already knew. Clara's night froze above the board. He already knew she was dead. Said he was sorry for my loss. But I hadn't told anyone yet. Hadn't even told the preacher. Samuel's voice went flat. Only way he could have known. He was there when she died. The words hung between them. Outside, wind gusted hard enough to rattle the windows. The lamp flame bent sideways. Through wild shadows, Samuel stood, walked to the window. Storm coming. Clara could see it now, a black wall on the horizon where there'd been clear sky an hour ago. The temperature was dropping fast. She could feel it through the glass when she joined him at the window. That's not just rain, she said. No. The clouds had a green tinge underneath, the kind of color that made her stomach tight. They were rotating, slow and massive, like God's own mill wheel grinding across the prairie. How long? Hour? Maybe less. Samuel was already moving. Get the shutters. I'll handle the animals. Clara had seen the shutters leaning against the side of the house. Never thought they'd need them in summer. She ran outside. The wind hit her sideways, strong enough to make her stumble. Her skirt whipped around her legs, tried to trip her. The first shutter weighed more than she expected. She dragged it to the window, hefted it up. The hooks were too high. She stood on her toes, muscles screaming, got one side latched. The wind caught the loose side, slammed it against the house. The sound like a gunshot. Samuel appeared beside her, reached over her head, latched the other hook. His body blocked the wind for a moment. She could smell him, sweat and fear, and something like copper. Get inside. The other windows. I'll do them. Get to the root cellar. The animals. Clara. He grabbed her shoulders. His hands were shaking. Get to safety. No. She pulled free. We do this together, or we lose everything. Lightning flashed, still distant but bright enough to turn everything white. In that instant, she saw his face clear the fear there. But something else, too. Recognition. Maybe. That she wouldn't leave him to face this alone. Thunder rolled across the prairie. Took 10 seconds to reach them. The storm was maybe 5 miles out. "The horses," he said. "Help me get the horses." They ran to the corral. The 3 horses were pressed against the far fence, heads high, nostrils flared. The stallion, Sam's prize breeding stock, was rearing, screaming. His hooves cut the air. "The barn won't hold," Samuel shouted over the wind. "Have to let them run." "They'll die in the open. They'll die in the barn when the roof goes." Clara reached the gate first, lifted the heavy bar. The mares bolted through, disappeared into the growing darkness, but the stallion wheeled, confused, ran the wrong direction. Samuel grabbed a rope from the fence post, formed a loop as he ran. The stallion's eyes rolled white. Foam flew from his mouth. Samuel got close, threw the loop, missed. The horse reared again, came down hard, hooves missing Samuel by inches. Clara ran to the opposite side, waving her arms. "Here! Over here!" The stallion spun toward her. Samuel threw again. This time the rope caught. The horse fought it, pulling Samuel off his feet. He held on, got dragged through the dirt. "Let him go!" Clara shouted. But Samuel wrapped the rope around his waist, dug his heels in. Clara grabbed the rope too, adding her weight. Together they pulled the stallion toward the gate. Inch by inch, lightning struck closer. The thunder came in 3 seconds. The temperature had dropped 20 degrees. Clara's teeth chattered as she pulled. They got the stallion through the gate. Samuel slipped the rope off, slapped the horse's rump. It bolted into the darkness. "The milk cow," Clara said. "She's in the barn." They ran. The barn door was banging, caught by wind, inside. The cow stood in her stall, lowing. Samuel grabbed her halter, tried to lead her out. She wouldn't budge. "Go to the house," he told Clara. "Not without you." The wind hit the barn like a fist. Boards creaked, started to separate. Clara could see daylight through gaps that hadn't been there seconds ago. Dust and hay swirled through the air, made it hard to breathe. She climbed into the stall, got behind the cow, pushed. Samuel pulled. The cow took a step, then another. They got her to the door just as the first hail started falling. Ice balls big as walnuts bounced off the ground, off the fence posts, off their heads and shoulders. One caught Clara above the eye. Blood ran warm down her face, mixed with rain that had started falling too horizontal, cold as winter. They got the cow into the lee of the house, tied her to a post. She'd have some protection there if she didn't break free. "Inside," Samuel grabbed Clara's arm. "Now." They stumbled through the door as the real wind hit. The house shook like a struck bell. The windows they hadn't shuttered exploded inward. Glass flew across the room. Clara dropped, pulling Samuel down with her. They crawled to the corner farthest from the windows. The lamp had blown out. In the darkness, she could hear things breaking, plates falling from shelves, chairs sliding across the floor. The roof was lifting, dropping, lifting again. Each time it lifted, rain drove in. Samuel pulled her against him, wrapped his arms around her, put his back to the room. Flying debris hit him. She could feel him flinch. Something wet soaked through his shirt. Blood, probably. Then a sound like nothing she'd ever heard, like a train, but bigger, like the earth itself was tearing apart. "Tornado," Samuel said against her ear. The house lifted. She felt it that moment when the floor left the foundation. They were floating, spinning. Her stomach dropped like falling. Samuel's arms tightened around her. Then the house dropped, hit hard. Something cracked. Major beam, probably. Dirt and insulation rained down. Clara couldn't breathe. The air was all dust and terror. She was laughing, or crying, maybe both. The absurdity of it surviving Harold's rejection. Working herself bloody to save this ranch, only to die in a tornado with a man she'd known 6 weeks. Samuel was laughing too, or maybe praying. She couldn't tell over the roar. The roof went, just peeled off like opening a can. They were in the open now, rain driving down, wind trying to pull them up. Clara dug her fingers into the floorboards, found a gap, held on. Samuel's weight kept her anchored, but she could feel the pull, the storm trying to take them. Lightning struck so close she could smell it, copper and sulfur and something sharp. In that white instant, she saw everything the room destroyed. Walls leaning, Samuel's face above her. He was looking at her like she was the only solid thing in a world gone liquid. Then darkness again, and wind, and the terrible pulling sensation, like the sky wanted to swallow them whole. "The corner!" Samuel shouted. "Stone foundation!" They crawled, staying flat. Clara's dress caught on something, tore. Her petticoat was plastered to her legs, heavy with water. They reached the corner where two foundation walls met, stone and mortar, older than the house, solid. Samuel pressed her into the corner, braced himself over her, hands on either wall, making himself a shelter. The wind tried to take him. She could see his arms shaking with the effort of holding on. Clara wrapped her arms around his waist, added her weight to his, held him down while he held the walls. They were locked together, neither able to save themselves alone. Time stopped meaning anything. Could have been minutes or hours. The storm screamed above them. Things flew past boards, branches, a whole tree uprooted. The milk cows bellowing cut off sudden. Clara didn't want to know why. Then, between one heartbeat and the next, quiet. Not complete quiet. Rain still fell, but vertical now. Wind still blew, but normal wind. The roar was gone. Moving away across the prairie, neither of them moved. Samuel's arms still braced the walls. Clara's arms still around his waist, both of them breathing hard, shaking. "Clara?" His voice rough. "I'm here. Are you hurt?" She took inventory, head throbbing where the hail had hit, hands torn and bleeding, dress gone below the knees. But alive, impossibly alive. "No, you don't know." She loosened her hold, looked up at him. In the dim light, she could see blood on his shirt, multiple places. His arms shaking, not from effort now, but exhaustion. "You can let go," she said. "Not yet. Samuel, it's over." "Not yet," he said again. And she understood. The letting go would make it real. The storm, the destruction, the fact that they'd survived it together. So she held on too. They stayed that way while rain fell through where the roof had been, while the house settled and creaked around them. She could feel his heartbeat against her cheek, fast but slowing. Could feel his breathing sink with hers. Finally, he lowered his arms, stepped back. The loss of his warmth made her shiver. They stood, looked around. The house was destroyed, 3 walls partially standing, roof gone, everything inside scattered or smashed. The ledger pages Clara had so carefully dried were plastered to walls, torn, illegible. Outside was worse. The barn was gone completely, just foundation stones. The chicken coop had vanished, fence posts pulled up like carrots, and the milk cow. "Don't look," Samuel said, but too late. The cow lay 50 feet from where they'd tied her, neck at an angle that said everything. Clara's legs gave out. She sat down hard on what used to be the kitchen floor, started laughing, couldn't stop. "Clara, we saved her!" She gasped between laughs that might have been sobs. "We saved her from the barn so she could die anyway." Samuel sat beside her, started laughing too, or crying, in the dark and rain. She couldn't tell. They leaned against each other, shaking with whatever it was, hysteria, relief, the terrible realization that everything they'd worked for was gone. The horses, Clara finally managed, might have made it. They ran south. The storm went north. The chickens, gone. The garden, he pointed, where the garden had been, where they dug those careful irrigation channels, was now a crater. The tornado had touched down right there, pulled everything up, roots and all. They sat in the rain, looking at nothing. Clara became aware that she was still pressed against Samuel's side, that his arm was around her shoulders, that neither of them was moving away. "We should check your wounds," she said. "Later. You're bleeding." "I know." She turned to look at him. His face was streaked with dirt and blood. A cut above his eyebrow bled steady. His shirt was torn in 3 places, skin showing through, all of it bloody. "Samuel, William Pemberton will be here tomorrow," he said. "What? Soon as he hears about the storm? He'll come to check his investment, see the damage, call in the note." Samuel's voice was flat, emotionless. "We can't rebuild this, not with $200, not with 2,000. Clara thought of those ledger pages, destroyed. The evidence of Pemberton's payments to Margaret, gone. Their only leverage, pulped by rain. "Then we leave," she said. "And go where? With what?" She didn't answer because there was no answer. They had nothing, less than nothing. Samuel's hand covered hers where it lay on the wet floor. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "Bringing you here, giving you hope for something better. Should have left you in town that first day. To do what? Starve with dignity." His fingers tightened on hers. "Clara." Hoofbeats, coming fast, multiple horses. Samuel stood, pulled her up. "Get inside. What's left of inside? Who would come out in this?" But she knew, even before the riders appeared through the rain. She knew. William Pemberton on his big bay horse, 2 men with him, one wearing a sheriff's badge. Pemberton stayed mounted, looking down at the destruction like a man surveying his winnings. Rain ran off his oiled coat, pooled around his horse's hooves. The sheriff, Tom Bradley. Clara recognized him now, shifted uncomfortable in his saddle. The third man she didn't know, young, clean-shaven, writing something in a notebook despite the rain. "Seems the Lord himself has made a decision about this place," Pemberton said. Samuel stepped forward, put himself between Clara and the horses. "What do you want?" "Pemberton, I'm checking on my investment." Pemberton's eyes moved over the destroyed house. The missing barn lingered on Clara's torn dress, though it appears there's not much left to check. The note's not due until December. That was before the collateral was destroyed. Section 4, Paragraph 12 of your mortgage agreement, destruction of secured property, allows immediate collection. He pulled papers from inside his coat. Protected by oiled cloth. "Sheriff Bradley here will witness that I'm within my rights." The sheriff dismounted, boots squelching in mud. "Samuel, I got to do my job. Your job is keeping the peace. Tom, not helping bankers steal property. Nobody's stealing nothing." Bradley looked miserable, water dripping from his hat brim. "But the law's the law." The young man dismounted too, still writing. "James Norton, Clearwater Gazette." "Mr. Rivers, care to comment on the loss of your property?" "It's not lost yet," Clara said. Everyone turned to look at her. She knew how she must appear, dress torn to her knees, hair loose and wild, blood dried on her face from the hail strike. Not respectable, not proper, not caring any more about either. "Miss Hartley." Pemberton's voice carried that same oily satisfaction she'd heard in the Mercantile. "Still here, I see, even after all this. I'm employed here. Where else would I be employed?" He smiled. "Yes, we've heard about your employment. Very similar to Margaret's arrangement, from what I understand." Samuel took a step toward Pemberton's horse. The animal shied. "Watch your mouth, or what? You'll lose your temper, assault a man of standing." "Please do. It would make this so much simpler." Clara grabbed Samuel's arm, felt the muscles coiled there, ready to spring. "Don't, that's what he wants. Listen to your woman. Rivers, Pemberton dismounted, walked closer, too close. Clara could smell his cologne, same as before, but mixed now with horse sweat and rain. Though I wonder, is she your woman, or will she be mine when you can't pay? State your business or get off my land. Your land for approximately, Pemberton pulled out a pocket watch. Another 48 hours. You have until Monday noon to pay the full amount, $800. The original loan was $500, plus interest, plus penalties for late payments, plus the assessment for property damage. He handed the papers to Samuel. It's all there, quite legal. Norton scribbled faster. Mr. Pemberton, isn't this rather sudden? The storm just passed. Natural disasters don't wait for convenience, young man. Neither do mortgage provisions. Clara took the papers from Samuel's shaking hands. Read them, while rain blurred the ink. Everything Pemberton said was there, in language that twisted like a snake, legal, binding, inescapable. There's another way, Pemberton said. They waited. Miss Hartley comes to work in town. My wife needs help at the house. Room, board, fair wages. His eyes stayed on Clara. You'd be part of a respectable household, not this. This is honest work, Clara said. Is it living alone with a man? No chaperone, no proper arrangement. Pemberton stepped closer. The whole town talks about it. About you. Let them talk. Oh, they do more than talk. They whisper about what happens out here, about what kind of woman would accept such an arrangement, what kind of man would offer it. Closer still, she could see pores in his nose, veins in his eyes. They remember Margaret, you see, remember her visits to town, her meetings behind buildings. Samuel moved so fast Pemberton didn't have time to react, not hitting, just there suddenly, between Clara and the banker. You need to leave. Sheriff, you witnessed that threat. Bradley sighed. I witnessed a man protecting a lady from unwanted proximity. Back up, William. Pemberton did, but smiled while doing it. Monday noon, $800 or vacate. He mounted his horse, looked down at them. Oh, and Miss Hartley, my offer stands. When Rivers loses this place, and you'll need somewhere to go. They watched the three men ride away. Norton looked back once, tipped his hat to Clara. She didn't acknowledge it. When they were gone, Samuel sank down on what used to be the porch steps, put his head in his hands. The rain had stopped, but water still dripped from the absent roof, made puddles in what used to be the house. $800, he said to his hands. Clara sat beside him, not touching, careful distance between them. We could sell the horses. If they survived, if we could find them, might get $200. The lumber from the barn. What barn? His laugh was hollow. It scattered across 3 counties. Then we go to town, talk to people. Maybe someone. Nobody in town's going to help us. You heard him? They all think. He stopped. They think I'm your whore. The word hung there ugly between them. Samuel's head came up. Don't say that. Why? It's what they're saying. You're not, we haven't. I know what we haven't done. You know. But they don't care about truth. Clara stood, walked to where the kitchen window used to be. Could see the crater where the garden had been, all that work, those careful channels, gone. Maybe I should take his offer. Samuel was on his feet. No. It would clear your debt. You could rebuild. No. Be practical. It's a solution. It's not a solution I'll accept. He came to stand beside her, both of them looking at destruction. I won't have you in that house, under his control, like Margaret was. The silence stretched. Finally Samuel spoke. That last deposit, September 15th. I think he was here when she died. Clara turned. Here. She was sick for 3 days. delirious mostly. But that last morning she woke clear, asked for water, asked for— He swallowed. Asked for William. I thought she meant William the minister. But when I came back from the well, someone had been here. I could smell cologne, his cologne. He came to say goodbye, or to make sure she couldn't talk. She was worse after— much worse— died that night. Clara felt cold that had nothing to do with wet clothes. You think he— I don't know what I think, but I know he made that last deposit after she died, like paying off a debt or buying silence. And Sunday came gray and damp. They'd slept in what was left of the house. Clara in the corner that still had two walls. Samuel by the door that no longer closed. Neither had suggested going to church. But as morning aged, Clara stood. We're going to town. Clara, get dressed. Whatever's left that's decent. They had little decent left. Clara's brown calico was torn beyond mending. She found her blue dress, water-stained but whole. Samuel had one shirt without blood, pants that were merely damp. The walk took 2 hours. No horses, no wagon, just two people on a muddy road, looking like what they were, storm survivors with nothing left to lose. The church was full. Storm brought people to prayer, Clara reckoned. Every head turned when they entered. Whispers rose like locusts. Clara kept her chin up, found an empty pew in the back, Samuel beside her, careful inches between them. Harold Fitzgerald was 3 rows ahead with a man Clara didn't know broad, prosperous-looking, gray at the temples. That's Dalton, someone whispered behind them. Widower from Dallas, rich as Midas. Harold's been trying to match him up. The service felt endless. Reverend Pike preached about storms and trials and God's mysterious ways. Clara watched Pemberton in the front row, his wife beside him, both dressed perfect. Mrs. Pemberton never turned around. After the final hymn, people filed out slow, everyone wanting to talk about storm damage. Clara and Samuel stayed seated, waiting for the crowd to thin. Harold approached with the widower. Clara heard about the ranch. She stood. Mr. Fitzgerald? This is Thomas Dalton. What? He's looking for a wife. I thought— No. Dalton stepped forward. He had kind eyes. She noticed. Tired but kind. Miss Hartley, I know this is sudden, but I have 3 children who need a mother. I can offer you a good home. Security. I have employment. Where the ranch is destroyed. The ranch is damaged. There's a difference. Harold laughed. Always so serious. Clara, so stubborn. That's why we wouldn't have worked. No, Clara said. We wouldn't have worked because you're weak. The words came out flat, factual. Harold's face flushed red. I'm trying to help you. You're trying to ease your conscience. There's a difference. She pushed past them, out into gray daylight. Samuel followed. They walked through town, every eye tracking them. At the Mercantile, Mrs. Pemberton stood with her church ladies. Quite a walk from the ranch, she called out. Such a long way for Sunday service. Perhaps you should find closer accommodations. Clara stopped, turned. Mrs. Pemberton, how is your husband's banking business still making those interesting investments? The woman's face went white. I don't know what you mean. $20 monthly investments for 4 years. Such dedication to local ranching. You can't prove anything. Can't I? Clara smiled. Your husband visited Margaret Rivers the day she died. Did you know that made a final payment 3 days after her death? Did you know that too? The church ladies exchanged glances. Mrs. Pemberton's mouth opened, closed, opened again. William's investments are his business, and Margaret Rivers was his business. Is that what you tell yourself? She left Mrs. Pemberton standing there, mouth still working soundlessly. Samuel caught up at the edge of town. That was dangerous, he said. Everything's dangerous now. They walked in silence until the ranch came into view, or what was left of it. In daylight, the destruction looked worse. The house was skeletal, the barn simply gone. There, Samuel pointed. 3 horses stood at the fence line where the corral used to be, waiting. The stallion, both mares, muddy, cut up some, but alive. Clara laughed, first real laugh since the storm. They came home. Horses always do if given the chance. They spent the afternoon catching the horses, checking them for injuries, surface cuts, nothing serious. The stallion let Clara treat his wounds, standing patient while she cleaned cuts with water from the well, the one thing that still worked. As the sun set, they sat on the foundation stones where the barn used to be. Tomorrow was Monday. Tomorrow at noon, Pemberton would come. We could run? Samuel said. Take the horses, go west. With what money, what supplies? I don't know, but staying means... He stopped. Means what? Means I watch you go to Pemberton's house, or Dalton's, or somewhere else that's not here. Clara turned to look at him, really look. His face in the last light, tired and defeated, and something else. Something she'd been avoiding naming. Is that what you think? That I'd leave? What else can you do? She thought about it. What could she do? No money, no family, no options except the ones men offered. I could stay, she said. Clara, I could stay and we could fight, together. With what? We have nothing. We have the horses. We have our hands. We have... She stopped, almost said something that couldn't be taken back. What? Samuel asked. What do we have? Each other, Clara said. The words sat between them on the foundation stones. Samuel's breathing changed, got shallow. His hand was resting on the stone beside him. She could see the tendons tight under the skin. That's not enough, he said. Isn't it? Not against Pemberton, not against $800. Clara stood, walked to where the barn door used to be. The moon was rising, full and bright enough to throw shadows. In the distance, coyotes called to each other across the emptiness. Do you know what I thought when the tornado hit? She didn't turn around, when the house was coming apart and we might die. What? That I was glad you were there, not because you were protecting me, because I wasn't alone. She pressed her palm against the doorframe that still stood. Somehow, though nothing else around it did. I've been alone since Papa died, even with Harold's letters, even in that boarding house in Denver with 40 other people. Alone. Samuel's boots scraped stone as he stood. She could hear him behind her, not moving closer, just there. You're not alone now, he said. Neither are you. Clara. She turned. He was closer than she'd thought. Close enough to see the pulse beating in his throat, close enough to smell the mix of sweat and horse and something that was just him. All week I've been watching you, she said. The way you measure coffee in the morning, the way you stand at the window checking weather, the way your jaw jumps when you're calculating. Her hand rose, stopped inches from his face. The way you looked at me during the storm like I mattered. You do matter. To who? To me. The words hung there. Samuel's hand came up, caught hers. His palm was rough with calluses, warm against her fingers. This is a bad idea, he said. Why? Because tomorrow I lose everything. Because you need better than a failed rancher with nothing to offer. What if I don't want better? What if I want this? This. His thumb moved across her knuckles. This is disaster. Clara, this is two desperate people making desperate choices. No. She stepped closer. Her free hand found his chest, felt his heart hammering under the thin shirt. This is two people who've been broken choosing to build something together. With what? "We have nothing." Clara kissed him. Quick, fierce, shutting off the words. He went rigid. Then his arms came around her, pulled her against him. His mouth opened under hers, desperate and hungry and tasting of coffee and dust. When they broke apart, both breathing hard. Samuel's eyes were wide. "Clara, stop talking, Josh," she said. "Stop thinking. Just be here, right now, with me." He kissed her this time, slower. His hands tangled in her loose hair, tilted her head back. She could feel the heat of him through her dress, through the places where the fabric was still damp from yesterday's rain. "This doesn't solve anything," he said against her mouth. "I don't care. Tomorrow we face whatever comes, together." He pulled back, looked at her, really looked. "Together, if you'll have me." Samuel's laugh came out cracked. "Have you, Clara? I have nothing, less than nothing. A destroyed ranch, $800 in debt, and a reputation that's—" "Stop." She put her fingers over his mouth. "What do you want? Not what you have or don't have. What do you want?" He kissed her fingers, then pulled her hand away, held it against his chest where his heart still raced. "You," he said. "I want you. Have, since you stood in tone with your chin up while they all stared, since you made that first pot of coffee, since you faced down Pemberton with nothing but ledger pages." His other hand came up, cupped her face. "But wanting and having are different things, only if we let them be." They stood there in the moonlight, surrounded by destruction, holding each other. Clara could feel the moment stretching, fragile as spun glass. "Marry me," Samuel said. The words fell out, rushed, desperate. Clara's breath caught. "What?" "Marry me. Tonight. Now." "Samuel, I know it's crazy. I know I have nothing to offer. But if we're married, Pemberton can't separate us. Can't force you to take his offer, or Dalton's, or anyone else's." His hands were shaking. "It's not much of a solution." "Yes, but at least what—" "Yes, I'll marry you." Samuel stared at her. "You will. Did you think I'd say no? I thought you'd be practical, sensible." Clara laughed. "When have I been either of those things? I came west to marry a stranger. I took work from a man I'd never met. I stayed through drought and storm and—" She stopped, looked around at the devastation. "And I'd do it all again. Clara, but we can't marry tonight. Reverend Pike won't, not without posting banns, not without—" "There's another way." Samuel pulled her toward the house. "Judge Harper, he can perform marriages. He's done it before when the circuit preacher was gone. He won't do it. Not this late, not for us." "He might, if we give him a reason." They saddled the two of the horses. No bridles survived the storm. Just rope halters, rode bareback through the darkness toward a town. Clara's dress hiked up to her knees, improper as anything. She didn't care. Judge Harper's house sat at the edge of town, windows dark. Samuel knocked, kept knocking, until a lamp appeared. Moving toward the door, Harper opened it wearing a nightshirt, cap crooked on his head. "Rivers, what in blazes? We need you to marry us. Now, it's past 10 o'clock. It has to be now, before tomorrow, before noon." Harper looked from to Samuel to Clara, took in their storm-damaged clothes, their desperate faces. "This about Pemberton. It's about us," Clara said. "But yes, also about Pemberton." Harper sighed. "Come in. Let me get dressed." His parlor was neat, organized, everything the ranch wasn't. Harper disappeared, came back wearing trousers and a shirt, still tucking it in. "You sure about this?" He looked at Clara. "Marriage is permanent, even to a man who's about to lose everything." "He's not losing me. You could do better. Dalton's interested, has money, stability. I don't want better. I want Samuel." Harper studied her, then nodded. "Need witnesses. 2 of them. Who would? Samuel started. I'll wake the Hendersons. They're next door. George owes me a favor. 20 minutes later, they stood in Harper's parlor, Clara and Samuel facing each other, the sleepy Hendersons watching, Harper reading from a small black book. Do you, Samuel Rivers, take this woman? Yes. I haven't finished. Yes to all of it. Harper sighed. Do you, Clara Hartley, take this man? Yes. You people are in a powerful hurry. He closed the book. By the power vested in me by the state of Texas. You're married. Kiss if you want. Sign the papers. Samuel kissed her, quick, almost shy, nothing like before. Clara signed her name next to his on the certificate. Clara Rivers. The ink was still wet. That'll be $2, Harper said. Samuel counted out the money, most of what they had left. Harper folded the bills, then handed them back. Wedding gift, he said. You'll need it more than me. Outside, walking the horses through empty streets, Clara asked, Now what? Now we go home. To what? There's no roof. Don't need a roof. Samuel stopped walking, turned to her. Clara, I meant what I said about having nothing to offer. You offered yourself. That's enough. Is it tomorrow? Pemberton comes. We still can't pay. We'll have to leave with nothing but these horses and whatever we can carry. Then we leave. Together. They mounted the horses, rode back slow. The moon was setting by the time they reached the ranch. In the darkness, you couldn't see the destruction as clear, could almost pretend the barn was just shadowed, the house just dark. Samuel helped her down, held her longer than necessary. There's something I need to tell you. What? About Margaret's room? I finally cleaned it today while you were with the horses. The dress, everything, burned it all. Why today? Because I knew, win or lose tomorrow, I knew I wanted that room clean. For you, for us. They went inside, to the bedroom that had been closed for 5 years. Empty now, except for a bed frame and a mattress Samuel had somehow kept dry. Clean blankets. Where had he found clean blankets? It's not much for a wedding night, he said. It's perfect. And it was. Not because of the room or the bed or any physical thing, because they'd chosen each other. Because tomorrow they'd face Pemberton together, whatever came. Samuel lit a candle, one of the few that survived, in its light. Clara could see his face, nervous and hopeful and scared all at once. I don't know how to be a husband, he said. I failed at it before. I don't know how to be a wife. Never got the chance to try. Then we'll learn together, later, much later. Clara woke to find Samuel at the window, looking out at the darkness. Can't sleep, she asked. Listening? For what? Horses. Someone's coming. Clara listened, heard it now, hoofbeats, multiple horses, coming fast. Pemberton, she asked. Too early. Sun's not up yet. The horses got closer. Samuel pulled on his pants, grabbed the rifle from beside the door. Clara wrapped herself in a blanket, followed him to the main room. Through the broken window, they could see torches. 5, 6, maybe more, men on horseback, faces covered with cloth. Rivers, someone shouted. Not Pemberton's voice, rougher. Come out. We need to talk. About what? Samuel called back. About you keeping a woman out here. About propriety. About what we do to men who don't respect Christian values. Clara recognized the voice now. Harold. Of course it was Harold. She's my wife, Samuel shouted. We married tonight. Judge Harper performed it. Silence. Then laughter, ugly laughter from multiple throats. Too late for that, Harold called. Damage is done. You corrupted her. Now you both pay. One of the riders threw something. It landed on what was left of the porch, rolled inside. A bottle with a burning rag stuffed in the neck. Fire! Clara screamed. Samuel grabbed the bottle, threw it back through the window before the flames could catch the dry wood. It exploded outside, fire spreading across the dirt where rain had washed away the grass. "There's nothing left to burn," Samuel called out. "Storm took it all." "Then we'll take what's left," Harold shouted. Her, won't be hard to drag you both to town." Clara pressed against the wall beside the window. Through a crack in the boards, she could see 6 men, Harold in front, his face covered with a bandana but his voice unmistakable. The others she recognized stances, horses, town men, merchants and clerks playing at being dangerous. "This is about Dalton, isn't it?" she called. "About the money you'd get for brokering a marriage." "This is about decency," Harold answered. "About maintaining standards." "Your standards," Clara laughed, harsh. "You, who promised marriage, then threw me away. You talk to me about decency." Samuel touched her arm, whispered, "The back, they haven't circled around." They crept through the ruined house, stepping over fallen beams, out where the back door used to be, into darkness. The horses were there. Samuel had tied them behind the house after they'd returned, still saddled. "Mount up," Samuel breathed in her ear. "Ride for town. Get the sheriff. Together or not at all." "Clara." "Together." They mounted silent as they could. But horses make noise breathing, shifting, the creak of weight on their backs. "They're running," someone shouted, hoofbeats behind them. Samuel kicked his horse hard, Clara doing the same. They rode into darkness. No road, just prairie. The ground was still soft from rain, treacherous. Clara's horse stumbled, caught itself, kept going. Gunfire cracked behind them. Not shooting to kill, even Harold wouldn't go that far. Shooting to scare, to make them stop. "The ravine!" Samuel shouted. "Follow me!" He turned sharp left. Clara followed, trusting. Behind them, confusion, horses wheeling, men shouting. They'd gained distance, but not much. The ravine appeared sudden, a black gash in the moonlight. Samuel's horse jumped down, slid, found footing. Clara's followed, her stomach dropping as they descended. At the bottom, a creek bed, mostly dry. They splashed through what water remained, up the other side. When they crested the ravine, Clara looked back. Torches milled at the edge, the men arguing. None wanted to risk the descent in darkness. "They'll go around," Samuel said. "Take them 20 minutes. We need to—" "Samuel!" Clara pointed east. More lights, coming from town. But steady lights, lanterns, not torches. And more of them. Many more. They waited, horses breathing hard as the lights approached. In the lead, Sheriff Bradley. Behind him, Judge Harper. Behind them, what looked like half the town. "That's far enough, Fitzgerald," Bradley called out as he passed the mob. "You boys head home before I arrest the lot of you." "They're harboring sin," Harold shouted, bandana slipped now, face visible. "They're married," Harper called. "I performed it myself 4 hours ago, legal and binding. That doesn't change what they did before. What did they do?" This from a new voice. Norton, the newspaper man, rode up with a lantern. Specifically, Mr. Fitzgerald. "What crime did they commit?" Harold's mouth worked. She lived there, unmarried. With him. She worked there," Norton said, "as a housekeeper and bookkeeper. Mr. Rivers slept in the barn. I've confirmed this with 3 different sources. But everyone knows, everyone suspects, everyone gossips. But knowing requires proof." Norton pulled out his notebook. "I've been investigating all the week. Would you like to know what I've found?" The mob had gone quiet. Some were already turning their horse, sliding away into darkness. "I found," Norton continued, "that Mr. Rivers paid Miss Hartley fair wages, that they maintained separate quarters, that they conducted themselves with complete propriety despite considerable hardship." He paused. "I also found some interesting records about certain payments made to the late Mrs. Rivers from a very surprising source. "That's enough," a new voice said. William Pemberton rode into the circle of light. Not dressed for midnight rides, he wore his banking suit, as if he'd been awake, waiting. "Everyone go home," Pemberton said. "This is finished." "William," Harold started, "it's finished. You've made fools of yourselves. Go home." The mob dispersed. Harold last, shooting looks of pure hatred at Clara. When they were gone, Pemberton approached Samuel and Clara. "Inside," he said. "We need to discuss business." They gathered in what was left of the main room. Pemberton, Harper, Bradley, Norton. Samuel lit the remaining candles, throwing shadows on broken walls. "It's not noon yet," Samuel said. "You can't foreclose until noon." "I'm not here to foreclose." Pemberton reached inside his coat, pulled out papers. "I'm here to return these." He handed them to Samuel, the mortgage papers, across them, written in red ink. "Paid in full." Clara grabbed the papers, read them again. "This doesn't make sense." "My wife," Pemberton's voice went flat. "She said if I didn't clear the debt, she'd make certain information public. Information Mr. Norton seems to have already discovered." Norton smiled. "Amazing what one can find in public records. For instance, $20 monthly payments recorded in bank ledgers for 4 years. Pemberton's jaw tightened. That was legitimate investment. "In what?" Harper asked. "What possible return could $20 monthly bring?" "That's between me and—" Pemberton stopped. "It's private business." "Not anymore," Bradley said. "Not when you use it to threaten people. Not when you organize mobs." "I didn't organize anything. That was Harold's stupidity." "Which you could have stopped with one word," Harper said. "But you wanted them driven off, wanted the land." Pemberton looked around the ruined room. "What land? It's destroyed. Worthless." "Land's never worthless," Samuel said quiet. "Just needs work, time, someone who cares about it." "Keep it then." Pemberton turned to go, stopped. "Your wife was right about one thing, Rivers." "What? You're a better man than I am." He looked at Clara. "Both of you. Better than this whole town." He left, boots echoing on broken boards. Harper cleared his throat. "Well, that's settled. Bradley, Norton, let's leave these folks to their wedding night. What's left of it." They filed out. Norton stopped at the door. "I'll be writing this story, the true story, about courage and perseverance and two people who refused to break." He tipped his hat. "It'll be in every paper in Texas." When they were gone, Samuel and Clara stood in the ruins of their home. Sunrise was starting, pink light through the absent roof. "We won," Clara said, disbelieving. "Did we?" Samuel looked around. "We have no house, no barn, no crops, no money. We have the land, the horses." She took his hand. "Each other. That's enough. It's everything." 6 months later, Clara stood in the doorway of the new barn, watching Samuel work with the stallion. The horse had thrown 3 men already this morning, buyers from Fort Worth, come to see the famous Rivers stock. The barn wasn't as big as the old one, but it was solid. Built with lumber they'd cut themselves, with help from neighbors who'd finally accepted them. The Hendersons, the Martinezes, even the sheriff had come to help raise the walls. The house was half finished still. They'd rebuilt the kitchen first, then the bedroom. The rest would come with time. Everything would come with time. "Mrs. Rivers." Clara turned. Miss Henderson stood there with a basket, fresh bread, by the smell. "Morning, Ruth. Thought you could use this. What with your condition and all." Clara's hand went to her belly, just starting to round. The whole town knew, of course. The whole town knew everything. But now they brought food and offers of help instead of judgment. Thank you. How you feeling? Like I swallowed a live fish that won't stop swimming? Ruth laughed. Gets worse before it gets better. But then, she smiled, then you forget all about the worst part. After Ruth left, Clara walked out to the garden. It was smaller than before, but growing. The irrigation channels Samuel had dug following her design worked perfect. Tomatoes climbing their stakes, beans heavy on the vine, corn tall enough to whisper in the wind. She heard horses approaching, turned to see who'd come calling now. Harold Fitzgerald, alone. His clothes were worn, his horse thin. Clara, Mr. Fitzgerald. I came to... He stopped, started again. I heard about Pemberton leaving town. Month ago. His wife insisted. They moved to Dallas. And the bank. Harper runs it now. Harold dismounted, stood awkward. I wanted to apologize for that night, for everything. Why? Because I was wrong about you, about what I thought I deserved versus what I could earn. He looked at the rebuilt barn, the growing garden. You earned this. With work and courage I don't have. What do you want, Harold? Nothing. Just forgiveness, maybe. Clara studied him. This man who'd rejected her, who'd led a mob to their door, who stood here now, diminished and desperate. I forgive you, she said, but forgiveness doesn't mean welcome. You need to leave. He nodded, mounted his thin horse. For what it's worth, you got the better man. I know. After he left, Samuel came from the barn, stood behind her, arms around her waist, hands resting on her belly. You all right? Perfect. That was generous. Forgiving him. Forgiveness is free. Trust is earned. She leaned back against him. He'll never earn that. They stood there watching the sun set over their land, their horses in the corral, their garden growing, their child growing, everything growing from nothing, from less than nothing, from complete destruction. I love you, Samuel said against her hair. I know. You never say it back. Clara turned in his arms. I wake beside you every morning. I work beside you every day. I carry your child. I chose to stay when I could have left a dozen times. She touched his face. If that's not love, I don't know what is. It is, he said. It's exactly what it is. The sun dropped below the horizon. First stars appeared. In the house, their house, a lamp was lit, throwing warm light through real windows. Not perfect, not finished, but theirs. Clara had arrived in Clearwater with 17 cents and a broken promise. Now she had this land, home, husband, future, all built from dust and determination and the simple refusal to break. Tomorrow would bring more work. Winter was coming. The baby would arrive with spring. There would be struggles, setbacks, storms. But tonight, standing in the doorway of their half-built home, Samuel's arms around her, life moving inside her. Clara Rivers knew she was exactly where she belonged, not because it was easy, because it was real, because it was chosen, because sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as our deepest humiliations, and the only way to find them is to keep standing when the whole world wants you to fall. The lamp burned steady in the window, the stars wheeled overhead, and somewhere in the distance a coyote called to its mate and was answered the sound to carrying across the vast Texas night like a promise kept. Connecting communities, friends. I need to tell you something that's weighed on me since I first shared Clara's story. You see, when I found her journal in that dusty attic, I almost put it back. Felt wrong, reading such private thoughts. But then I understood she wrote it for us. For anyone who's ever stood in a public square while the world pronounced them worthless. For folks who've learned that love isn't grand gestures, but quiet presence when storms tear everything apart. Clara wanted us to know that community isn't about being accepted, but about accepting yourself first. That sometimes our deepest humiliations become our greatest salvations. Her truth reminds us that homes aren't built from lumber and nails alone, but from choosing to stay when leaving would be easier. Disclaimer: this work is inspired by historical accounts of frontier life, created solely for entertainment purposes. This story does not condone, encourage, or promote any form of violence or harmful behavior. All characters and events are products of the author's imagination, and any resemblance to real persons, living or deceased, or actual events is purely coincidental. The portrayal of historical attitudes reflects the period setting and should not be interpreted as endorsement of such views.